Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I got some time today on Easter Sunday to do my first start and check everything. My fuel lines aren't leaking. Everything should be good to go. I got oil. First swing is just see if it starts. Go straight to seeing if it starts. If it starts, I'll crack my garage open and everything because it is cold out. This passenger seat being all the way forward is making me anxious. Goodbye. Put this up here. Okay, yes, so here is the car. It has made a few trips. It is still in one piece, luckily. And I have almost the whole back seat back in here. I have to do a bunch of stuff to the back seat yet, so it's just kind of sitting in here. And then nicely enough, the whole interior is looking good, ready to go. Everything's together for the most part. One neat thing that I did do, let me show you boys. Not sure if I showed this in another update. Make sure my door doesn't smash into the engine hoist. So I ran the little boy Holly Dash up in here. And then I also, well, there's one or two things hanging down. It's for stuff I may hook up in the future. And then what I did was I hid the Holly in here. Isn't that nice? Oh man, it fits in there perfect into the second glove box, I guess you could call it. So that's an X Max, and it drops in there beautifully. Very pleased with that for sure. And then I cleaned up a lot of wiring and stuff in the engine bay. It might be hard to tell, but it was kind of a mess before. So now you can see my coolant hoses for the blower. Real simple and short. They just go down into the front where the little guy heat exchanger is down in here now. And then she's 8 rib. And I also took this whole corner here, and this was just like a no man's home over here. I just threw everything in this corner hoping to hide it, and it was significantly ugly. So there's the inputs and outputs I have left. And then another neat thing is I've shown this once or twice before, and I would love to do like a video overview on this. This is that MSD solid state relay block, which I thought was pretty dumb and useless. And I was talking to my Holly rep about it, and I'm like, who needs that? What's the use of that? Blah, blah, blah. So he sends me 2 to use, and I'm like, wow, these are incredible. And he goes, yeah, I told you. So I want to talk more about this. This is pretty cool. So I'm using that right now to do fans 1 and 2. So that's fan 1, that's fan 2. That's the battery feed from the battery in the center. And then the next one is fuel pump. And then the next one is water pump. The Bosch water pump for the heat exchanger system. And all of that's managed by power and grounds right here. And it's built-in fused, built-in heat protection, blah, 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 everything. And it can also do PWM because it's solid state. What was really neat is I was doing PWM fans, but this has 2 different fans in the front end, and only the one fan responds to PWM. The other one won't. So, not sure what I want to do with that. PWM the one and put the other one on as a hit. Not sure. So, I also took the time to loom a bunch of stuff that was not loomed, like the alternator wiring, put it in nice looms. I ran this stuff neater. I put black Velcro tape on stuff instead of zip ties. And I got my Dash 8 to push lock 3/8 fitting. The only ugly thing I have now is this guy. I couldn't find a nice 6AN, and that's on my return going to the flex fuel sensor, and then the return is returning on the stock feed. And then, like I said, that's the good boy PQI that I always use. So all this is cleaned up and nice, and I'm very pleased with it. And hopefully this thing is good for another year or two if I don't keep messing with it and ruining it. But yeah, happy with everything so far. That's pretty much it for the round table on this, followed with the rambletron and all the other updates. So now we have the updates. I got the G running on Easter Sunday. I'll show you the video of that. First fire up went really well. I had no other issues. No big issues, I should say. The only problem I had was I forgot to tighten a particular bolt that holds like the belt on. I think I always miss one thing, and I first take it out and I feel like the belt, something's wrong with the belt, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't tighten it correctly. That always happens to me. So fixed that up, and then drove it a little bit, went over a few things, and the twin disc, here's my immediate observations. So I have tons of fuel now, since my fuel feed isn't a less than a 1/4 inch size hole. I have a -8 1/2 inch PTFE all the way up front to a regulator that has 1/2 inch fittings, and then that goes into a -8 fitting on the rail, and all that's from Monkey Fab, and it's another PQY regulator working fine. Again, that's like my 5th one in a row for the people that dislike that or have issues with them. So then next, I gained about 30% or more of my duty cycle back. So I made hits in the 600 horsepower range on the dyno, 620-ish tire, less than 70% duty cycle. So that means I have plenty of injector now for spray. The only funny thing is, something funny was happening, and I noticed this on the 6 rib, and I was pretty sure the 6 rib was not slipping. So I went to 8 rib, and same thing's happening. I make more immediate boost now because the balancer I put on is overdriven by 10%, and it's 8 rib. So now on the stab I make up to 17 pounds at like 3,000 RPM, and it noses off to like 15.9 at higher RPM. People say, there's lots of things I read up on that say you shouldn't spin the blower more than 24,000. It just can't pump any more air. The other thing is it's getting close to mechanical limit and just efficiency and a bunch of things. So I did a calculation on mine, and it's at like 23,750, assuming it's getting a perfect amount of blower RPM at 7,000 RPM, which people say they don't recommend really spinning it. People say you should shut off at like 6,500 for a lot of the calculators. Not sure why. So I do start to lose a little bit of boost, and I don't think it's belt slip. It doesn't look like belt slip on the log. I've seen belt slip on the log. So the other thing is I have a 2 1/4 inch exhaust, and a lot of people, friends of mine, knowledgeable, who are also tuners and everything else, say the 2 1/4 is way too small. They said the blower cars really need a very easy flowing exhaust or they can hold up the works. So part of the restriction could be the exhaust, which is a shame because I love it. It fits nice, and it's loud out the back. It sounds cool, but you can see in the videos where I walk past the car, it gets quiet immediately in the car and in front of the car. So to drive the car is really nice. It's not very loud at all in the car. It's really nice to have something this nice and not have it be obnoxious or blow out your eardrums on a drive. So I think for a dyno hitter too, I might drop the exhaust. It has 3-inch long tubes, and I neck them down with cones to the eBay catback that came on the car. And it's funny to see how far it has gone. The other thing is, do I bother with that at all and just spray on top, or is it going to kill my power a lot on spray? There's a lot of things that go over with that. I could build or have someone build a really nice 3-inch catback, and my issue with that is it going to be really loud? Am I going to hate it then? After spending a ton of money on it, is the car just going to be loud and I don't want to drive it as much? I won't enjoy it as much. That's part of an issue. Also, the other issue is I make so much power as it is. Do I really need that much more on blower only? I figure if it makes decent power right now, and I just spray it up every now and then, that would be fine also. But the other part of me has to know if the exhaust is robbing that much power so I can report it. The other thing I was interested in looking at was the blower snout. I was going to hook up a map sensor to the inlet and see if the inlet was restricted, because a lot of people making this kind of power, decent power with an LSA, they already have it ported, they already have the snout ported, all of that stuff. Mine is a completely stock LSA. So is that stuff holding me up? That's possible also. So it could be restricted. Now that I'm spinning it more, it could be hitting its limit or a wall sooner because the inlet and the outlet is restricted. So it did make 620 when I was hoping to be closer to 700. The other thing, like I said, it drives really nice. I'm very happy with that. The pump setup is working great, other than my fuel gauge stopped working on the way home, hilariously enough, so I have to take that apart. Probably my fault because I did not build a bracket for anything. It's just sitting in there, it's zip tied together. So I'll take a look at all that, but I'm happy to report finally I have the amount of injector that I should. I have 1000s in there, and they definitely shouldn't be capped at 600 wheel at over 100% like they were. And that's all because of the feed. So all of that worked out. The twin disc is driving nice. Everything else seems nice. I finally found why my front end clunked so bad while I had the whole front end of the car apart. My sway bar bushings that hold the sway bar to the frame horns are annihilated. So it's metal on metal. I always thought it was like a strut or something else. I've looked a couple times. When I did my brakes, I looked. I couldn't find anything on the control arm or the strut that made noise, and it's because it was all the sway bar is just metal on metal banging the frame. That's what makes all the noise. So I'm glad I found all that. Other than that, I was slightly disappointed that I didn't just crack out 700 on blower only and go home, but that's mostly because I have high expectations for myself, obviously, and it's the first day the thing is even running. So to see that I had no issues with fuel, no issues with overheating, no significant leaks, didn't have a belt come off, didn't have accessories come flying off, all of those are large gains that I need to focus on. It's just because I didn't initially exceed all of my goals. I have to step back, like I said, and see that I got fuel back. I have good clutch now. I don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. What do I want to do next? So I have stuff on the way to do spray. I'm going to put some more miles on the clutch, make sure everything else is good. I'm also happy with the heat exchanger system recovers way faster than the other one. Now the initial temp is a little bit higher, not that bad though, and on the dyno the temp comes up pretty quickly, but what I noticed is while street driving it takes a lot longer for the temperature to come up because there's so little water. It's coming out of the blower, hitting that big flat heat exchanger, cooling off and going right back into the blower. So the rise isn't as fast as the other system was. That's interesting, right? So it's cooling and going right back into the blower with all that front air speed faster than it was before, but it just has a higher sitting resting temperature because it's all the water system is sitting in the hot engine bay next to the radiator in the front, everything else. So it sits around 100 degrees, and if I drive around it drops down to like 80, but on a couple long 4th, 5th gear pulls, it didn't really get much over 100. Whereas before, it would go way up over 100 very easily. So that's what I wanted. I wasn't really concerned with it being hot, just recovering faster and being far less water in the car and a smaller loop and easier to manage, yada, yada, yada. So that's all a win also. So if you count all those and that the car is fine and everything is still ticking, and we can spray it next. Very happy with everything. So that is the update as of right now. That's the initial findings. So we will work on exhaust and inlet and some other stuff, because obviously I hit a wall and I thought it was my clutch. Obviously the clutch was completely shredded, but now that I pulleyed it more and I have more blower traction, I still have this boost issue, and it's worse because I make more initially and it still falls off. The blower is not slipping. What would be cool is people do put speed sensors on the blower and measure the blower speed. I could measure the blower speed to make sure that the blower speed's always going up, but I'm also very close to the mechanical limit, a lot of other things. So hope everybody learned from all that. I'm certainly learning from this. No one I know has a small engine with an LSA like this, so I can't really bounce facts off of them. So learning it as I go. I've asked a bunch of them and they're like, I don't do any small bore, so I don't know what to tell you. And then people that are making this kind of power, like I said, they already did a gigantic exhaust. They already have it ported, the blower and the snout, blah, blah, blah. So here I am with all this learning. Like I said, I can put a map sensor on the snout and I can measure to see if I start getting vacuum in the snout. So say you hook up a map sensor to this snout, it's 100 kPa barometric pressure, you calibrate the map sensor to read 100. When you do your dyno pull, it should show 100. If the intake or the snout becomes a restriction, that's going to fall below 100. So it's going to start pulling vacuum because it can't get air past the inlet into the blower enough, if you didn't know that. So that's an easy way to tell if that's going on. So there's all the facts. Afterwards, I'm going to put the dyno stuff so you can just hear it make noise early on and then hang in for the facts. So that's it initially. Hope everybody enjoys.